Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the July 6th regular council meeting to order at 6 p.m. And I would like to offer our traditional land acknowledgement for our first meeting in July. Sutsetikum. We honor all the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. We acknowledge that the ancestral and traditional lands on which we gather are the land of the Blackfoot, and it is Treaty 7 territory, a traditional meeting ground for many Indigenous peoples, and in particular, our neighbors of the Siksika Nation, on whose traditional territory we work, live, and play, and on whose traditional territory we stand, and where Omotukuki Strathmore resides. Thank you. I would now ask for a motion for the confirmation of the agenda. Thank you, Councillor Wagner.
I move that council adopt the July 6th regular council meeting agenda as presented.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And for the public tonight, Mayor Fuel sends his regrets, and Councillor Wiley and Councillor Montgomery are joining us from via Zoom and as our CAO. So thank you to all of you. And Councillor Langmaid also sends her regrets. So now we are going to item 3 on the agenda, a land use bylaw, amending bylaw for the public hearing. And the public hearing for bylaw 22-18, being a bylaw to amend the land use bylaw number 14-11, is in session at 6:02 p.m. This public hearing is held pursuant to the Municipal Government Act, RSA 2000, Chapter M-26, and the amendments thereto. So, Manager of Legislative Services.
Thank you, Your Worship. The purpose of the public hearing is to discuss bylaw 2218. First reading of this bylaw was given on May 18th, 2022 at the regular council meeting. The public hearing was advertised on June 3rd, 2022 on Facebook, June 8th in Strathmore Times, June 9th on Facebook, June 15th in the Strathmore Times, and June 23rd on Facebook. To date, no written submissions have been received.
Thank you, Legislative Services. Thank you, Jonathan. The following rules of conduct will be followed during the public hearing. Presentation should be brief and to the point and will be limited to 5 minutes in length. The order of presentation shall be administration, then those in favor of the bylaw, those opposed to the bylaw, and any other person deemed to be affected by the bylaw. Council may ask questions of the speakers after each presentation for clarification purposes. There will be no debate on the bylaw. I would ask administration to present at this time, and I would introduce Dallin Osachuk. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Your Worship and Council. I'm here tonight just to give a brief overview of the Land Use Bylaw Amending Bylaw number 2218, this one concerning Lakewood Phase 2A. So the Lakewood developer has initiated Phase 2A of their development. Land within that ASP area was previously redesignated in the early 2010s, and the developers now applied for a redesignation just to better accommodate the market and their current development needs. So this bylaw, they're looking at a small amount of the P1 district and requested that the side yard setbacks in this phase of development be reduced from 1.5 meters to 1.2 meters. So to accommodate this request, staff are proposing a district overlay that would allow for this reduced setback. The redesignation was processed concurrently with a subdivision application that would propose 46 residential lots and 4 municipal reserve lots. Moving forward, staff have historically supported this 1.2 meter setback in Lakewood, but it's been granted as a variance at the development permit stage. So staff have some power through the land use bylaw just to vary some of the requirements. Sometimes it may be height or density. In this case, it would be for the side yard setback. So a 1.2 meter setback from 1.5 would be a 20% variance, and we're obligated by the land use bylaw to notify any adjacent landowners of a variance that exceeds 10%. So in doing that, some of the mail outs, the time in the mail. There will be an appeal period after, excuse me. The variance can add up to 1 month processing time for the permit. So generally, staff are proposing this district overlay just in an effort to streamline that permitting process in Lakewood, which would save time for both staff and applicants alike. District overlays are unique land use districts and can be tailored to specific sites. They've been used before throughout town. In this case, this specific overlay, it would contain all the provisions of the R1N district, but it would allow for that 1.2 meter setback instead of 1.5. So in practice, it would function very similarly to that R1N district, just with the reduced setback. As I mentioned in the beginning, we're looking to add 0.199 acres of the P1 district to a larger existing P1 district in Lakewood, and this one is just to accommodate a proposed park in this phase. One note of importance here, Lakewood is outside the 10-minute response time of the fire department, so homes there are subject to higher building standards, and that's required by the National Building Code. Some of those standards include no windows facing the side yards. They need a 45-minute fire-resistant cladding and cannot have vented soffits. Ultimately, the proposed redesignation is consistent with the existing development in Lakewood. It conforms to the concepts of the area structure plan and is not in contravention of any policies of the town's municipal development plan. So thank you very much. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, administration. I really appreciate that, Dallin. And at this point, we would ask if there was anyone present who supports the bylaw who would wish to speak. And I understand that we have some people from Lakewood, Neil and Scott, if you would like to come forward to the mic and introduce yourselves.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. My name is Neil Coulter, and I am one of the partners of the Lakewood Development. If it's okay tonight, I will give a quick background and then let Scott finish up with the presentation. We are here in support of the land use changes before you today. These changes will make it easier for our builders to have the flexibility in dealing with their housing designs and also the approval process with staff and the community, make it more efficient. Also, the addition of the 2 lots backing onto the large park will add another housing alternative to our proposed phase without affecting our overall MR. As a little background on us, my partners and I are experienced developers. We have been involved with and completed many residential developments in the Calgary area over the last 25 years. We were the developers of the Hillview and the Hillcrest Manor communities directly to the east of Lakewood. We've been working continuously on Lakewood, this project, since 2011 when we bought the land. We completed our phase 1 construction in late 2014. We were able to start building houses in January of 2015. Unfortunately, we all know things were not good from 2015 to 2021. But last year we made some great changes, including the addition of 2 new partners in Lakewood. We have also added Scott Silva as our Director of Sales and Marketing, among other titles. Scott wears many hats with our group. Our sales over the last year have proven that our changes were the right ones. Things are really looking up moving forward in Lakewood and in Strathmore. I would finally just like to let council know what a great job staff is doing. There has been a lot of things come up over the last couple of years, really difficult things with Lakewood and surrounding area, and staff has been great. We would especially like to thank Chuck and Ethan for their help in moving things forward, and also Dallin. Scott is here to quickly give some information on the project and our proposed next phase. Once Scott is finished, myself and Scott will be here to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Coulter.
I'll adjust this a bit. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. Just to continue from where Neil left off, I'm just going to go through a quick slideshow for points of reference. So right now, as you see outlined in yellow, that is phase one. That is the phase that started Lakewood going back in 2015. Where we're now moving into, oh, of course I pressed the wrong button. Where we are now moving into is phase 2A. Phase 2A is the noted additional lots, including the noted addition to our public park. So that park area will now be close to 3 acres, and we're looking forward to having that completed here.
Scott, for the people at home, could you just indicate on your screen where that is?
Sure.
Yeah, perfect.
So
Thank
right
you.
where the cursor is there, that is the public park area. So it'll be total about 3 acres. And I believe that is what was also added on this amendment to make that park larger. Just moving forward, to give you an idea of some of the different home types that are expected in phase 2A, the phase 2A lots that are coming online really offer a diverse type of home product that's not typically seen here in Strathmore. The first one of note is the underdrive garage. The underdrive garage is typical for where you have a descending lot from rear to the front. Typically, you'll see what we have are walkout lots, which are also noted up there. So that is your typical walkout, where the underdrive is considered a reverse walkout. Next to that, we also have rear lane detached homes coming online. This allows for a different front streetscape, which really affects the overall look of the community. So it's not always garages in front of homes when you see them. A flat site is what you would typically see as your traditional type of lot that you'll see around. And then the walkout. So all of the waterfront lots and all the lots onto the park are also walkouts. To date, we have had maybe close to, I don't want to overstep, but maybe close to 8 or 9 different variances requested to the 4-foot side yard. I've been a part of all of them, helping the builders get achieve the approvals. And we haven't had any concerns or any objections to date. Beyond that, we are open to any questions.
Council have any questions? Seeing no questions from council, I would really thank you, Scott and Neil. Thank you very much. Is there anyone present who opposes the bylaw and wishes to speak? And I'm assured that there are no registered speakers, so at this time, we will ask if there is anyone present deemed to be affected by the bylaw who wishes to speak. And I'm assuming there is no one registered to speak and no one has called in at this point. So are there any questions or clarifications from council at this time? And seeing none, I will declare the public hearing for bylaw 22-18 being a bylaw to amend the land use bylaw number 14-11 closed at 6:14 p.m. And thank you for all of that. And the next portion of our meeting, number 4 on our agenda, is set aside for public comments, generally comments from our public. And I would ask Bryce, and no one has called in, no one is excited to speak to council or yell at us tonight, so that's wonderful. And we'll move on now to delegations, and it is a great privilege and a pleasure for me to welcome Melody A. Youngman from the Siksika Nation. She's here with her husband, Steve Hunt. And we would invite you to the microphone, Melody. Thank you for coming.
This is new to me, sorry. Okay, Nistawan Nakok, sopa mo, nidum tutu Siksika. Just before I start, I just want to do our school prayer that we always do in our Blackfoot language. Ayu apis tatuki, ispumukinan, nahkai sinan, nahkeiki moti sinan, nahkai kakimach sinan, nahkokomotok sinan, nahtawai tuitak sinan, uhtukinan, Apistaduki, Gimmiskagusix, Ixikimadopsia, Gamodan, Nistawatsaman, Napiusin. Thank you. So, thank you, Richard Wagner, for inviting me today, and Denise Peterson, sorry, to the meeting today. What our family is proposing is next year will be our boy Christian, a young man's fourth year memorial. And in 2019, the town of Strathmore Town Council and the mayor at the time, and also Siksika Nation Chief and Council, had asked me what things I would like to see. And at the time, I just knew that our communities needed to work together and to make better relations amongst one another. And so I'm very glad to see how the town of Strathmore and Siksika are working together in creating better relationships and taking active reconciliation. And so what came to our family is we were taught in our native ways and by my grandparents that when we do things, especially for those that are loved ones that have passed on, we do things in fours, and that's what my grandma, she did that for my grandpa. And so with that being said, next year will be Kakadusi, Christian A Young Man's fourth memorial. And what we were thinking is what a great opportunity to take active reconciliation and having a powwow here in Strathmore, and that could involve all your organizations, your businesses, volunteers, and also the Siksika Chief and Council may want to be involved as well. And in the first memorial, we did a men's traditional special that was just done with our family ourselves. We did all the funding. We purchased like the first place winner champion jackets and all this stuff. Our family did it on our own. And I thought, what a better way to do the fourth year memorial is to include that here in the town of Strathmore. And I just sent forward a sample poster of what a powwow consists of, and we can follow this as a guideline, a sample budget, a sample guideline. It also could be used to for organizations that want to donate, and they could also use that as tax write-off to their business because they're donating to this. Similar to rodeos, how they donate towards a category. So the town of Strathmore businesses and organizations could also do something similar. And also, powwows are a huge event. They're known as social gatherings to celebrate life in First Nations communities all throughout North America, in Canada and the United States. And so this would draw people from all over North America. And also, this would also bring a lot of business into your community, but also many nationalities coming together. And also, what a great opportunity for the town of Strathmore to learn about all different First Nations cultures in Strathmore. And yeah, so I just wanted to bring this idea forward to the town of Strathmore, and in honoring the words and what was asked of me back then, and that would be our fourth year memorial, then that would be done. But I'm also looking for, I'm also looking at, and our family is also looking at, we're not gonna stop there at just the fourth year memorial. There's other things happening for my boy, and because it was a huge wrong that I think that we're looking at possibly from here on, or even, I don't know, like I was asked in the past, we're looking also at a Christian A Young Man Foundation for First Nations people, and I think I see a bigger picture there, but that's just another topic that I just wanted to bring forward to the town of Strathmore, because I know Strathmore had asked me in the past too, so.
I really want to offer on behalf of our council and our community our deepest thanks for your generosity and your care for not just your own son or your own people, but for all people, and how your loss and the loss of Christian has breathed life into a new way of living and being, and that you keep up this fight as enormous credit to you, and it has been of enormous benefit to us. And I see that vision that you have, how holding a powwow of the dimensions you speak, it would be an invitational powwow, so we could invite all nations to gather. One of the things that has been inspired by the Anti-Racism Initiative through Siksika Nation and Strathmore, and it came from Christians' involvement and your family's involvement in powwow, is that Marigold Library is looking at undertaking, setting up a lending library of outfits. And so they've had some, I understand they're about to get some donations of outfits, and they want to put them together. And they've had young students from Siksika going to schools, dancers, doing demonstrations and teaching non-Indigenous children about powwows. And so, you know, Christian's influence in our community and your family's kindness and generosity and, you know, that movement of love and caring that you've shown has changed our world significantly, and I think this is a continuation of that. And the other thing that I wanted to share with you is that just recently, on June 21st, on National Aboriginal Day, there was a huge celebration at Wheatland Elementary School, and many of our schools throughout our community. But at that school, 2 teachers received Blackfoot names in ceremony, and they earned that through their work in the Anti-Racism Initiative, one through writing a book about a little boy from your community. That's incredibly special, where all the children were involved, and another for her advocacy in Indigenous care. And one of those people who received the name of Pitake, Eagle Woman, is Councillor Mitzner's daughter. So we're very proud of her, and we thank you. I can't thank you enough, and I just would like other council to chime in if you have some things to offer or some ideas, and thank you again. They may have questions for you, so thank you. Councillor Wagner.
Again, Melody, thanks for coming out, and can't imagine what you guys went through. So since this time, we've become friends, and I've enjoyed that. All I can say is, like, with the powwow, like I say, I support that. I think we are making great strides with the anti-racism initiative here in town and on Siksika. I do think we have a little bit more to go, but I think we are making strides. So, and anything that we can do to help bring awareness to this is good. It's going to benefit both of our communities. So, again, I just wanted to say thank you for coming out, and yeah, that's about all I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Councillor Mitzner.
Hi, I'd just like to share, Dr. Lobe, one of my best friends and neighbors, we have visited the Albuquerque powwow numerous times and seen the results on community, the number of people, and it would just be wonderful for Strathmore. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions, either from administration or council? And seeing none, I would ask for a motion. Councillor Wagner, thank you.
I move that council refer Melody A. Youngman's request to administration and direct administration to return to council with a report.
Thank you, Councillor Wagner. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
That is carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Melanie and Steve. I really appreciate you coming and honoring us with this. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move now to item 6 on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. And consent agendas are relatively new for this council. This is where we take things that are included in the public documents of council. They're there for all community to see. And, but they're things that help us to move the meeting along with some efficacy and efficiency, but still allow everyone to have full access. So at this point in time, I'm looking for a motion on the consent agenda. Councillor Mitzner.
I will move that council adopt the recommendations of the following agenda reports by an omnibus motion. 7.1, regular council meeting minutes, June 15th, 2022. 7.2, special council meeting minutes, June 22nd, 2022. 10.2.1, WHMB Board Meeting Report, June 16th, 2022, and 11.1, report regarding Stars Alley impact.
Thank you, Councillor Mitzner. There's no discussion on a consent agenda motion, so seeing the completion of that, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, that is carried. Move now to number 7, confirmation of minutes. I'm looking for a motion. I'm sorry, Jonathan. They were approved in the consent agenda, I knew that. Sorry. 8.1, we are moving to 8.1, natural gas utility services, hedging approach. Thank you, and Ms. Hugo is here.
Good evening, Council. It is my pleasure to present the topic of the natural gas utility services hedging approach. I'd like to start with introducing what hedging is. It's very similar, I'll start again. I'd like to introduce the purpose of what hedging is for, and it's to help stabilize the expenses for natural gas. It's very similar to when you think of hedging, you can compare it against mortgages, whether you do a fixed rate on your mortgage or a variable rate. So a hedge is very much like the fixed rate. And so the town of Strathmore has been doing hedging for their natural gas since 2013. We have worked with an organization, a hedge services provider. And the reason we are bringing this forward as an approach as opposed to council signing or approving the contract is when we go forward to the spot market to ask for contracts to be brought back to us, we only have a limited time to sign off on a contract. It's anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes. And the reason it's such a narrow time frame is because we're in a very live market. So we're bringing this to council as an approach to see, does council support the idea of the town going back into another series of hedging contracts? Our current hedging contract expires at the end of this calendar year. And what we have done historically is about 50% of our consumption is under a hedged contract. So given that over the last few years, we've been in a fairly low, stable market, up until about a year-ish ago, maybe January, we really saw the markets change for natural gas. And there was a number of factors that caused that. So we are in an unpredictable market. We don't know where it's going to go. The rates have more than doubled. They're moving into that tripled type time size. And the other detail to share is that roughly natural gas is about $275,000 a year under our current hedged contract. So assuming we do nothing, we could see that type of expense double or triple next year, depending on what the spot markets end up doing. So to come back to the reason that we're asking, does council support us using an approach method, is we would work with our hedging services provider. We would go through the steps of pre-qualifying the different natural gas providers, ask them to bring forward their offer to us, And then we would choose which offer to go with and sign off, and we would do that within that 30 to 60-minute timeframe. So again, the reason for the approach is because we just don't have the time available to do all of those steps, bring it to council for council's approval. What we would do, though, is if council supports this approach, afterwards we'd bring a report to the next available council meeting, and we would tell, this is what our choices were, and this is one we went with, and this is why we went with it. Is there any questions?
Councilor Wagner.
I don't know if it's so much a question, but a comment. I mean, I've worked for big companies that have hedged gas in the past, and especially in this volatile market, who knows where it's going to go. So as far as this goes, it's something that I can support. I think I really don't see a bad for the town myself. So that's.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Wagner. Councilor Mitzner.
Through the chair, I just have a quick question. Did I miss, is there a term? Are they like 2-year terms, 5-year terms?
So thank you. No, that's a great question. The terms can be anywhere short as 1 month to 5 years. So we will work with our natural gas hedging services provider to determine what type of term do we want to go into. Given that we're in a volatile market, we may not want to be in a longer term. We may want something slightly shorter so that we can possibly go back into another hedged contract later on once the markets stabilize.
Thank you, Councilor Mitzner. Councilor Wiley.
I just think this is a great idea. Are you guys able to hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. I just have a question out of interest then. Is it possible to do like 50% of the hedging in one length of contract and another whatever percent in a different length and that kind of thing?
So there is a lot of flexibility, and one of the questions we will be discussing with the provider is whether or not we want to stay at 50% or hedge more. But I hear what you're asking is more is, can we layer or ladder? And we will definitely be seeking those types of flexibility given the impact and the uncertainty within the market.
Everything I've been hearing so far is just so great, and I really trust the administration here to do the right thing. So thank you so much for your presentation and this idea.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from council? I really appreciate this. I remember the last time that I saw this when I was on council, sort of at the end of the volatility. But I remember the presenter saying at the time that the natural gas market over that 18-year period from 2008 or to 10-year period to 2018 was 3 times as volatile as the Dow. And so, yeah, it makes sense. And I appreciate administration's wisdom and would call for a motion at this time if someone so wishes. Councilor Wagner.
I move that council supports the financial strategy of hedging the natural gas rates and acknowledges the time sensitivity to executing the agreement, and that council authorizes the CAO to execute the natural gas hedging agreement with the chosen utility provider, and that council direct administration to report back on the options that were received and the successful utility provider.
Thank you, Councilor Wagner. Are there any questions or clarifications required on the motion? Seeing none, I would call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
And that is carried. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you.
We move on to 8.2, Fire Mutual Aid, and we have our fire chief here, and thank you very much.
Good evening, Council and Your Worship. So tonight we're bringing the mutual aid agreement. As you can see on this report, it's for information. So the whole reason I'm here today is if you have any questions about this specific agreement, and I'll leave it to staff to, if you have any questions on the authority of signing, but it's my understanding that the CAO could sign it. So a little bit of the summary. So basically all this is I've gone through all of our mutual aids. This one came up as one that needed to be done for the simple fact that they're our closest partner that has a ladder truck. And what those are primarily used for is large structures or multifamily dwellings or institutions. And so we felt it was prudent to have a signed contract with a municipality that could provide that aid for us, as we have quite a few of those structures within our service area. And so there will be some other agreements like this coming forward. This is probably the first of maybe 5 or 6 that we have to probably renew. And we'll take the same approach with all of them. The billing is based off of the Alberta Transportation agreement, and what that is it's agreed to by the Fire Chiefs, Alberta Fire Chiefs Association, and the provincial government, and that's remuneration for response onto provincial highways. And so what most jurisdictions are doing is using that as their base funding for those same trucks. So was there any specific questions I can answer for anybody on that?
Yes, Councillor Wagner, go ahead.
Just a couple, Chief. You answered the one, because I was going to ask, how did you come to the Schedule A, the rates and that, so thank you for that. One question, again, I think mutual aid agreements are a good thing, but does Chestermere have one with Calgary that you know of?
Yeah, so Chestermere does have one with Calgary. We do have it's called a South Central Emergency Services Mutual Aid Agreement. And what that is, it more encompasses emergency management, but within that we could call on resources. The only thing with that one is the timeline can be, like, to actually activate that could take considerable amount of time. Whereas these agreements with the specific municipalities acts as we can just go directly to the officer in charge of whoever's in charge of that crew. Okay. And so what this does is give them the authority to grant that approval right then and there. It doesn't have to go to through a dam or through a fire chief or whatever. It's all brought in advance.
Okay, and just the reason for that, for my question on that was, if Chestermere and Calgary have one, to me, just by reading this, it almost looks like we're going to be probably more of a beneficiary of the services than what Chestermere would be for us going the opposite way. So, if I read that correctly, if I'm right with that, that's good. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I think, and sorry, just to interject there. So one thing with that, and specifically with Calgary, so there's been quite a bit of media lately with them, and obviously I don't know their internal workings, but we've noticed more and more their resources aren't being allowed to go outside of the city because they don't have enough resources within the city to meet their response times. So the outlying jurisdictions aren't relying on the bigger center to provide that aid anymore. It's not, I guess, back in the day, that was something that everybody just relied the city would send resources, and it's just becoming more apparent that that's not the case. So we're finding that it's better that the smaller areas get together and we help each other and not try to rely on the big municipalities like that.
Okay, thank you for that. And I know you guys discuss this and you talk about it, but for anybody out there, again, if Strathmore does go to Chestermere, there will be adequate coverage here in the town of Strathmore should something happen here.
Yeah, absolutely. And built in this agreement, obviously we have the right to recall any equipment no matter what. That being said, before anything's sent out of town, we deliberate right on the spot, and we figure out how many members we have available, what resources we have, what are the likelihood of the events. And, we can't plan for everything, but the town will never go unprotected.
Yeah. All right, that's great. And just one last thing. Now, again, we've got the Wheatland Regional Municipal Aid. Would they be called upon, I guess Chestermere has the ladder truck, which is kind of, sounds like the big one that you need, but would the Wheatland Mutual Aid be activated before activating the one with Chestermere?
Yeah, that's correct. So right now, what we have set up is although we call it mutual aid, it's essentially an automatic aid. So anything that we have confirmed working or structure fire, Wheatland West is automatically dispatched to that call for us. And obviously they have the right to refuse service as well. But to date, since I've been here, they've been on any large incident that we've had, they've been on ours, and vice versa. We've gone to the county and in those events for them as well.
All right, thank you. That was all I had. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Wagner. Are there any other questions from council regarding this? Thank you very much, Chief, for your presentation, as always.
Thank you.
Thank you
Have
so
a good
much.
night.
That brings us to bylaws, 9.1, land use bylaw amending bylaw 22-18. Thank you. Thank you, Dallin.
Good evening again, Your Worship and Council. Don't believe I have anything to add in addition to presentation earlier. However, I am available to answer any questions.
So council, at this time, it's an opportunity for you to ask questions of Mr. Osachek or Planning and Development. And I'd ask if there are any questions relevant to bylaw 22-18. And seeing none, I would ask for a motion. Thank you, Councillor Mitzner.
I move the council give second reading to bylaw number 22-18, being a bylaw to amend the land use bylaw number 14-11.
Any questions or discussions on second reading? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
At this time, council can continue on the next reading, if it is your wish. Councillor Wiley.
Sure, I'm prepared to make the final motion.
Thank you.
The council give third reading to bylaw number 22-18, being the bylaw to amend the land use bylaw number 14-11.
Are there any questions? No debate? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That is carried. Move on to 9.2, land use bylaw amending bylaw 22-21. And I'm looking for a motion at this point. Oh, actually, Mr. Proctor, do you have anything? Please.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's a first reading bylaw tonight, but I have a small presentation prepared if council wishes. Thank you.
I think that'd be good. Thank you, Mr. Proctor.
So before council tonight is bylaw 2221. I'm presenting just a very quick presentation on behalf of the administration team in planning and development. This bylaw has to do with phytoorganics, and it's a district overlay that we're proposing. Up on the screen is just a location map of where this site is. You'll see the municipal boundary there, and this parcel is south of the highway, located on WID lands there, south of the dog park. Just kind of a more zoomed in photo of the site that we're talking about or proposing for first reading tonight. It's a 26.6 acre parcel. Orchard Way to the north, Slater Way, so that kind of area there. So Phytoorganics have submitted a land use bylaw redesignation application. Their current zoning or land use is agriculture, and they're proposing to go to light industrial district overlay. Staff are proposing a district overlay or a direct control to help us write something specific for this unique business opportunity coming to Strathmore. The bylaw proposes to add a new definition which will help fit in with Phyto's proposed operation. The district overlay also includes 6 additional uses in addition to the uses in the light industrial district, which will again help Phytoorganics take on the next steps of development. The bylaw proposes also to add a handful of regulations. Chinook-tolerant, drought-resistant landscaping. The height of the building is not to exceed 37 meters. There's no restrictions on exterior building materials, and stormwater is to be managed to the satisfaction of the approving authority. So our recommendation tonight is for first reading and that a public hearing is set for September 7th, 2022. I'm happy to answer any questions of clarity or process questions. Thank you so much, Your Worship and Council.
Thank you very much, Director. Are there any questions from council for clarification regarding this proposed land use bylaw, amending bylaw? Yes, Councillor Montgomery, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. Just a motion when you're ready, actually.
Please proceed, thank you.
I'll move that council give first reading to bylaw number 22-21, being a bylaw to amend the land use bylaw number 14-11, and that council direct administration to...
They have to be done separately? Yeah, so if you could just hold off on the second one, Councillor Montgomery, let's vote, we'll vote
you
on.
bet.
Yeah, so there's no debate on first reading, so I would call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Council, and Council, that is carried, and Councillor Montgomery, please proceed.
Thank you. I will move that council direct administration to schedule the public hearing for bylaw number 22-21 for September 7th, 2022 at 6 p.m. in council chambers.
Thank you. Question on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
And that is carried. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Proctor. So we move now to councillor information and inquiries. 10.1, questions between councillors and council statements. Is there anything from any of our councillors that you have for this evening? Seeing none, we'd move on to 10.3, questions and answer period. Do councillors have any questions of the CAO at this time? We have no administrative inquiries, and we have no notices of motion. So at this point in time, I would ask for a motion to move into closed meeting by someone who's allowed to make a motion. Councillor Wagner.
I move that council move in camera to discuss items related to section 24(1)(a) of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act at 7:47 p.m.
6:47, is it? Yeah.
6:47.
Thank you, Councillor Wagner. All in favor?